great treasure troves, even after all these decades that it's been around, is a Charlie Brown Christmas. It gives us a good sense of how we in this country look at this celebration. It also gives us a good sense of what Christmas actually is about. Now, Charlie Brown often stands in for all of us. And in a Charlie Brown Christmas, we see him in a state of depression, a state of despair. He's depressed about what's going on in the holidays. He's confused and frustrated by seeing around him all of this commercialism that's going on during the holiday. And he is desperate to know what it is that Christmas is actually about. Now, as often happens with Charlie Brown in all of the work that Charles Schulz did with Peanuts, he goes to Lucy Van Pelt and her dubious psychiatry booth. And it's there he lays down all his problems, all his depression, all the things that he is worried about. And in a even more dubious and ethically questionable response, Lucy thinks to herself, well, our Christmas play needs a director. Not thinking anything about Charlie Brown's wants or his gifts or anything else. She tells him this is what he needs to do. He needs to be the director of this play. So Charlie Brown, even not being quite sure about this task he's been given, goes and tries to do the best job that he can. But he's still despairing. He's still seeing all this commercialism around him. He desperately still wants to know. He cries out even as they're getting ready for this play. What is the meaning of Christmas? So Charlie Brown's friend, and just so happens Lucy's brother, Linus, gets up in the middle of the stage, and a magical spotlight goes down on him. And Linus begins to recite the very same reading we just heard, our gospel for this service. He reads this passage from Luke. And then he looks at Charlie Brown and says, that's what Christmas is all about. Now, Christmas is a festive time of year, but it's also a time that many of us struggle with, too. It's a time where, even though the world around us seems happy, sometimes we aren't. And in that, too, we may find ourselves, just like Charlie Brown, struggling with what is very much a sense and spirit of consumerism that goes around us. And maybe, too, we're looking at the world around us. We're looking at what's going on this season. Maybe like Charlie Brown, we are wondering, what is Christmas really all about? And maybe some of you came here. Some of you came here to hear our gospel and hope that in hearing that story, either for the first time or once again, maybe that would help. Maybe that would give a better sense what is going on, what Christmas is really all about. And if you didn't, that's okay too. There's no reason to fear. That's the reason that we have a sermon in this service. The interesting thing is that a Charlie Brown Christmas doesn't end with Linus's recitation of the Gospel of Luke. There's no the end card that comes after it. There's a good bit that follows. Not a long bit, it's a very short film. It's less than half an hour for those who want to relive it after this service. Because after Linus gives this recitation, we have this whole storyline with this tree. Now, Lucy gives Charlie Brown instructions during their play, during their rehearsal. Linus goes with him. And they are charged to find a Christmas tree. And the kind that Lucy wants is a big aluminum tree. This big tree that is flashy and bright. Charlie Brown has a different idea. He finds this tiny tree, this tiny insignificant tree. It's probably the only real tree in this entire lot. There's even little needles falling off. It's not in a good state. And Charlie Brown says that he feels like this tree needs him. And so he takes it back, and all the other people, all the people that are there, all his friends, all these fellow play actors, they look at the tree, and they start to yell at Charlie Brown, and they start to laugh at him. Charlie Brown still has hope. So he takes the tree home and puts an ornament on it. And this ornament on this tiny tree is enough to pull the entire thing down. The entire middle branch of the tree falls down. And Charlie Brown despairs over what's happened. But Linus and the rest of the crew have followed him. And Linus's statement is that he always felt that all this tree really needs is just a little bit of love. And so Linus and everyone else takes these ornaments and decorations off of Snoopy, Charlie Brown's dog, his dog whose doghouses won the Christmas doghouse decoration celebration. This prize-winning house with all its ornaments go on this tiny, insignificant, falling apart tree. And all of a sudden, it looks beautiful and ready to go. Charlie Brown and all of his friends stand around singing Hark the Herald Angels Sing. Now this story is important because it gets at the meaning of what we hear in our gospel, of what Linus recites in the film. Because the work of God, the story of Jesus, they're not about power. They're not about might. Now, just like what we see with the Charlie Brown Christmas, they're not about the flashiest Christmas tree, either. Because what we see with Jesus, what's going on in between the lines of our reading for this celebration, what's going on is that God is coming down into this world, to be born as a human baby, to be here with us in the midst of all the disease and filth and just all the gross and nasty things that it means to live in this world. Instead, Jesus, God himself as a human child, is born into a family of poverty. They're not well known. They're not well connected. And we see that because as they go to Bethlehem for the census, they cannot even find a room at the inn. So Jesus' parents do what you would have done in that day and age when you can't find a place to stay. They would have gone to a cave. There likely would have been other people there. There would have been animals and livestock there too. And if that weren't enough, the only place that Mary can go to have any privacy while she's giving birth is the spot over with all those animals and livestock. The only place she has to lay Jesus down is a manger, which is literally a feeding trough for animals. This is what God came into. It wasn't anything glorious or grand. It was a world wrapped in poverty and even a little bit of despair. And Jesus did this. Jesus came into this world, was born into this world to be one of us. To go on to live his life, to try to teach us to be better, and ultimately to die on the cross for our sins. Dying an act we ultimately would look at as a failure. And God did this for one reason. God did this out of love for us. To fix us. To save us. That's why God came. To be in these messy lives that we call humanity. To die for us. And then to rise again. A sign to us that we wouldn't have to die like he did. That we too one day would rise with him into a new and resurrected life. The work of God isn't about having the flashiest Christmas tree or decorations or anything like that. It's not about riches or power. The work of God is about taking something humble, something seemingly insignificant, transforming it into something glorious, magnificent, and beautiful. That's what Jesus is doing with us. That's the reason that Jesus came into this world. That's the hope that we have to look forward to in our Christmas celebration and throughout all of our lives and all of our celebrations in the church. What God is working in us isn't an act of power. It's an act of love. It's an act of love that we receive even though we have done nothing to deserve it. And God was willing to come through all the mess of humanity to do that work for us. God faced hardship in this world. God faced failure. And God did so that as we look up to our risen Lord, so too we can be risen with him. And for that, the only thing that we can say in response is thanks be